Good morning, beautiful people. It is 9/13/2013 at 10:33 a.m. Interesting number sequence there. Oh, man. Every video I'm going to say, oh, wow. It's been pretty intense, what I've been experiencing here uh, these past days since my last video. It seems to be what I'm experiencing in my personal life seems to be a fractal of what's going on in with Mother Earth and the collective of humanity. Um, there's many persons close to me that know that I have been taking care of my neighbor as he was going through his passing process. But remember, death is nothing more than a rebirth. And many of us know that we are rebirthing Mother Earth and the collective of humanity right now. So it's really interesting um, to have had an experience that began December. I don't even know exactly when it was. I first went across the street to help out my neighbor. His name was Steve Brown. He was 58 years old, and he had been diagnosed with a heart condition uh, in 1994, and said that he wouldn't have more than a couple of years to live anyway, and he's lived till now. He was did many of the same things that I've done throughout my life, and poisoned himself good doing construction and mechanics, and um, always having his hands in the chemicals like I had my hands in the chemicals. Like I've said many times before, it took me 10 years of detoxification as my frequencies were going up to release and to heal what I had put into this body because of my work and because of my hobbies and because of the things that I like to do throughout this lifetime, not to mention uh, the other stuff that we take over from other lifetimes to this lifetime. So anyway, um, many months ago, and it was probably about December 2012, Steve was finally getting weak, and his 82-year-old mother had been taking care of him. Steve used to be 300 pounds when he was doing construction, like many of us who were in that business and being built up and bulked up. But and especially with the toxification of the bodies, you hold a lot more weight um, and stuff, all types of stuff, mental stuff. And anyway, Steve had fallen the first time as he was going into the bathroom and spent the night in the bathtub until his mother could finally get me the next morning. And I went over to help him out. At that time, Steve was about 200 pounds, and he had been 300, so he'd lost almost 100 pounds, which I've done myself. I'm about 200 now, so he was my size then. And I picked him up and helped him out, got him to his cane, and he ended up spending the next months of his life in his bedroom in a little hole in an underground concrete house that is something that I've always dreamt of building, and it happens to be one right across the street where he was. Well, anyway, over the months I would go over and pick him up, and then I guess it was April, he started having a cancer on his tongue, and he couldn't eat anymore. So, and the doctors weren't helping him out, and they weren't going to do surgery on his tongue. Most of them were scared of getting sued, which because they didn't help him, then he didn't eat for the past 6 months. And it took him that long to finally expire the body. Anyway, over the past several months on a very regular basis, and sometimes a couple of times a day, I would have to go over there and lift him up so he could have his diapers changed and he could be cleaned, or his chair that he was sitting in could be cleaned by his mother while I was holding him up. Anyway, last week, and it was on 9/9/2013, I had heard the air horn sound, because I don't have a telephone. I don't deal with money much anymore, only when I have to. And Ms. Brown uses an air horn because I could be any place on the property, and that's the one way that I can hear the air horn and know to come over and come to the rescue. And so I guess it was right in the evening, as I was finishing up my work in the garden around the farm ranch, and I heard the air horn and went over there, and Steve was quite insistent that he wanted to go to the front room, where he could actually see out the sliding glass window, sliding glass door, and see the daylight and blue skies and birds and everything else. And I had had a really long day that day. In fact, it was the day that I made my last video, and I'd been shoveling a lot of horse poo-poo. And I think I got like, well, if it's a weighted out trailer and I did 2 loads, I was between the 4 times of loading and unloading, I was at 10,000 pounds, so I was pretty sore. And I told Steve he wanted to come out to the front room and be in the chair, and I knew what was going on. I've taken care of dying people before, and he wanted to see outside, and go. He was finally down to 90 pounds. Anyway, he couldn't speak, and he was constantly motioning to have me take him to the front room. And I said, Steve, I can't do it tonight because my body is physically hurting. And not only could me moving you hurt you, but it could hurt me. And let me do it the next morning. He agreed. He didn't want to, but he agreed. And he couldn't talk, but he can nod, and his faculties were there all the way to the end. And anyway, the next morning I came over and got him, and he and his mom and I put him in his office chair, which had wheels on it, like a computer desk chair, and I was able to roll him out of his bedroom and put him in a lounge recliner in the front room. And as soon as I got him into the recliner, I positioned his hands and asked him if it was okay, and he smiled and nodded yes. And I could see him look outside, and it's like, oh, I finally get to see outside. And his mother put a pillow under his head. And then I brought Miss Brown, his mom, outside, and I said, he's not got very long. And I've actually witnessed this before several times when people are finally wanting to release from the body and they want to see outside. And so anyway, I told her I would come back later on that evening. I figured it was going to be a long day, just like it had been the day before. And I told Steve if I put him out front in this recliner, I might not be able to get him back that evening. It might be a repeat of what had happened the day before, and I might just be so sore physically where, it could cause an accident for him or I. And so he was okay with the possibility of him being there all day, all night, and into the next day before I could come get him. But anyway, as I brought his mother outside to speak with her, I could see him just looking outside, and you could see a smile on his face. And I watched his eyes as he was seeing the light for the first time in about 6 months. And that evening, after I got through working, before I came in and got all cleaned up, I went over and was checking on him. And as soon as I walked in the door, his eyes and his face and everything about him was still in the same position that I'd left him at, but his eyes were cloudy. And Anyway, his body was physically there, but Steve had left the building. Well, really left the body. He had not left the building. We ended up having to do some clearing afterwards to get him to move on and go to the light. And many of you have watched my past videos and known that in my connection to Prime Creator, I'm working from that end of a portal, being here, boots on the ground, working both ends of the portal to connect from Mother Earth, from the farthest possible state of being we could possibly be in existence, all the way back to Prime Creator. Many persons really want to go back to heaven, and they don't realize that in the 4D astral, we were always getting caught in the outer layers of Mother Earth, and then we would recycle and reincarnate into physical beings from the overlayer of Mother Earth until this duality experiment had been finalized. So anyway, my message was, when he finally left the building, when we finally got the energies cleared out, and he was coming over here to visit me where I am here. And it was so strange because I could smell him, and I could feel him, and I could hear him. And it turns out that he had visited Kim at her house next door, and had been all around, and we were all quite aware of what's going on. And part of one of my meditations when he was here was to show him the pathway back to Prime Creator, the real heaven, the true heaven, which now it's open for all of those passing on the other side to go back if they so choose, or they can recycle here. And my message was that he chose to go all the way. Same thing that that many of us are doing and can connect with, although while still being in physical form here, we can at least hold the energies of Prime Creator. That is really cool. So anyway, Brother Steve Brown passed on. And as I look at what's going on, because everything is a fractal, whatever occurs in my personal life is fractalized in Mother Earth, in the collective of humanity. And then it's fractalized on a larger level, in the solar level, and it's fractalized in a galactic level, and on the universal level. And we're all going through ascension right now. And ascension, in one way, is a death of the old to rebirth into the new. And it's interesting that Steve took off just after the planetary Merkaba alignments, and that portal was set between July 29th and August 25th of 2013. And we were connecting back all the way to Prime Creator. It's really interesting that I had this experience with a living human being going through his exiting process as my fractal in exactly what I'm doing with the collective of humanity, Mother Earth, this solar system, the galaxy, and the universe, multiverse. And that's pretty wild. My life is always fractals and synchronicities like that. And it's interesting how that happens. And anyway, as I'm connecting with other gatekeepers and other persons who are here to ascend Mother Earth and the collective, I find that my experiences are not so different from other persons. And also, what many of us are doing right now is our own inner integrations. It seems like so many of us gatekeepers have achieved our next level up of the ascension process, had new Merkabas installed within us. And there are many Merkabas. We come here in a Merkaba. There's a Merkaba around everything. It For it to exist, there is a Merkaba around every thought, everything in existence, every emotion. It's the seed of life. It is how sacred geometry is used to create anything and everything. And we come in with one level of a Merkaba, and when we shift our consciousness from our head to our heart, activating our toroidal field, we, in that electromagnetic gyroscope that we call our light body, which the actual body is just like is said as the Merkana, and the parameter of it, which creates the portal, the vehicle, is called the Merkaba. And as we activate our Merkana, we are activating our Merkaba, our solar Merkaba, in the 5th Ascension Initiation. And as we go through our initiation processes, we go initially through our personal ascension process, or that reconnection to soul, and then next we go through our solar system parts of our ascension process, and that takes us into our galactic initiations that starts at the 8th Ascension Initiation, or when your Merkana actually goes spherical around you. And then in the 9th initiation, you have an expansion where it comes, which in the 8th initiation, it goes from your root chakra above your head, and it's your ascension column goes spherical. In the 9th, it expands down below your feet into your earth chakra. And in the 10th, that's powered up and blazes out like a star. And it is at that point you have a galactic Merkaba installed. So the 5th initiation, you have a solar Merkaba installed. In the 10th initiation, you have a galactic Merkaba installed, and then you go through processes of expanding that light and holding more light quotient. And in my video with Malene LaFont, as I was integrating Metatron, what you saw in that video was actually my 15th initiation, or 15th light body expansion level, which I had the universal Merkaba installed. So you start out with one Merkaba, you get another one when you activate at your 5th initiation, one that's functional, and then you get another one in your 10th that's galactic, and in the 15th it's universal. And with each one of these, we have to integrate the light quotient and the frequencies within our body before we can move on. We have to go through more purification. And boy, did I have some stuff coming up within me, and it was going on right at the same time that I was taking care of Steve as he was passing. And in some ways, I couldn't tell whether it was my own or whether it was the collective of humanity, or whether it was Steve's or any astral darker or lower energies that had attached to him because of his condition, which that happens quite often. And those lower energies can actually feed off the weakened individual. And so in a lot of ways, we're working with these energies and not exactly knowing with a clear vision or clear understanding of what's going on. And for those of us that are the gatekeepers right now, we're going through processes that have never been experienced on this planet. Remember that 5th initiation, when you get your soul Merkaba activated, that was when you left planet. Before 1992, you couldn't remain on planet, and having gone through that process, you went through a dimensional doorway, or you dropped body, or you created the vortex and left in your energetic Merkaba. before then, just like you've heard so many masters doing previously. And we are doing things that have never been done before. Um, and literally, the initiation that I took with Malene Lafont with the integration of Metatron is more than 3 times anything that had ever been done before on this planet by previous ascended masters or persons going through their initiations or ascension process. Um, that had never been done. And there's many of us leading this way, and we're at this point going through it kind of blindly because we go through these integrations and initiations and light body expansions and unlocking our various abilities, and there's just no data out there to relate to the experience from other persons having done this. This is brand new in this universe. And that's pretty cool. I love being an adventurer, and I'm sure all you do too. But sometimes it can leave you a little bit uncertain, and it's that fear that we each and every one of us have to get over. Learn to surf. And that's an inside message to a special friend of mine who is seemingly sending me messages, and she just posted "learn to surf" on her her Facebook page here recently, and I think that's pretty cool. So anyway, this is a return message for that. I got you, sister. It's been a wonderful ride, and I told you this was going to happen. And so anyway, it seems a lot of us gatekeepers lately, if you notice in the news, we are going quiet because we're going through things ourselves rather than being out front expressing in videos or our writings or postings or whatever we're doing details of what's going on, because right now we're all working on self more than trying to birth the collective. Our birthing of the collective in this death and rebirth process that we're going through right now, which is what a birthing is, which on the solstice will be 9 months, the full gestation period for Mother Earth in the birthing process since December 21st, 2012. And so right now we're coming out of that birth canal, and we're doing it as individuals, but even with that, we're fractals of the one. And there's some of us that are the head and the eyes, and we're coming out of that birth canal way before the feet at the other end of our bodies come out. And so it won't happen all at once, and it'll take some time. And as I told Daniela this morning, that's just the birth of a new baby, and then we're going to have some diaper changing going on these next months and years, and 2 years from now we get the terrible twos. So this is going to be a process, and it's very similar to what we've experienced as being human, but it's on a much greater spiritual level and with the collective of everybody on Mother Earth. And what this baby's going to look like, we don't know. You never know when a baby's born what it's going to look like when it finally grows up. You just don't know. You don't know the process of it. And we are each individual cells within this collective of humanity that's being birthed as the one being for our new experience, new Earth. And what it's going to be, I don't know. Some of the cells can steer and guide and help to have certain experiences or have certain traits or have certain looks or have certain abilities. Some cells of us in our individual form can affect that much greater collective of the body of the cells in a much greater way, and we can steer and guide it in ways that other cells can't. There's some cells of us that are unlocking our full DNA potential right now, and because we are unlocking our DNA potential, all the other cells will follow suit. That's kind of what's going on. But what is it going to be like? I have no idea. I think anything and everything that we are each attuning our focus and our conscious levels to creates the possibilities for what we're going to experience in the future. There are many persons out there starting to have reports of bilocating. Telepathy is old news. All those abilities of sending messages to each other, many of us have been doing that for a long time. Many of us came here experiencing some of that, but it wasn't until, and that was with our higher selves or our guides or angelic beings or future selves or whatever you want to call it. And then it wasn't until much later that many of us started having experiences like that with each other. Now it's commonplace. It's old news. It's no big deal. But many persons are now starting to have experiences of bilocation, of going and visiting other places around Earth and taking tours, of actually going and seeing what's there and coming back. Some of them are saying it's very real. Some of them are saying it's almost like a dream state, but when they actually go and look up what they just saw online, since we can verify things, all the things were there, so they know they were there. Some of it, it's teleportation. Some of it, it's bilocation. All of these are the abilities that we're all getting ready to get into, and it all has to do with how intently and how much energy, how long we can hold that focus with the amount of frequency and light quotient we have within our personal physical fields, our Merkaba. And it all is technology. It's avatar technology. And this is only the beginning. This is the very beginning. What's going to happen in the future? Heck if I know. But I tell you, it's turning out to be pretty beautiful. The old energies are really getting cleansed from Mother Earth, and it's feeling very light. It doesn't feel dense and heavy. Although we see things like Syria going on, and it's my personal belief, since the collective of humanity is coming through this ascension process, that to wake up the unawakened collective of humanity that hasn't themselves figured out what's going on in the past 25 years since harmonic convergence, and so many of us were focused on changing the planet, collective humanity, and bringing Mother Earth through her ascension process. Since so many of those persons are still asleep, it's going to take, while those of us are holding extreme levels of light and channeling that light and the encodings into this planet, and are really, really stepping up into higher levels of frequency that are just unimaginable a few years ago. That other side has got to make balance, and it's going to look like it's extreme darkness on the other side, making the balance, because we're still in duality until we get through this birthing process. We are still in duality. So it looks like it's the darkest just before the dawn. And that's where all the final remaining prophecies are playing out in that darkest side. But then there again, if you know the other prophecies, those of us who are holding this side, the light side, we're doing the same things. And we're merging more and more into our oneness, which is only from inside. Many people think that the oneness comes from the actual collective of humanity, all the individuals coming together with single unified focused thought. But no, it's the merging of the divine masculine and the divine feminine within our hearts. That's the oneness, the bringing back in of the polarities into the balance, into the wholeness, and the healing that unfolds at that point. And the realization and recognition that comes from that level of consciousness that each and every other consciousness out there, not just human being, but animals, trees, butterflies, birds, the grasses, that it all is consciousness and it all has the right to be what it is. And as we merge our divine masculine and feminine, we start expanding our beings into the higher levels of consciousness. You start realizing that everything has the right to its existence and its experience. And you start seeing and living from a level of respect and admiration for all consciousness, not just for the self. And it is that when each individual starts merging the divine masculine and feminine within the heart, which it takes to activate the heart chakra, not just open the heart chakra. Opening the heart chakra, that's at the very beginning of your ascension process. That's like the second or third ascension initiation, and the activation is the fifth ascension initiation, where you step into your mastery, and you'll start tasting the light at all times and feeling the bliss at all times and truly enlightening and empowering yourself. And that's at the fifth ascension initiation, and then it's just ongoing from there. But as those of us on planet start stepping into that merged divine masculine and feminine, we go through the activation process and we generate the electromagnetic toridic field, torus field, toroidal field, and our Merkana and our Merkaba. Then we shift in consciousness levels into our oneness, and it's those of us who have done that that are collectively joining the universal or galactic oneness that is really what the goal is. And it's at that point that you start really having a different respect for all life and all consciousness, and you realize everything's consciousness, including this couch, that picture, this computer, every thought, every human being, every creature, every grain of sand, every drop of water is consciousness, and it responds to you, and you interact with it in different ways, and you learn to work with it in very different ways, and it will work with you. Something very interesting. Many of you guys know that I've been planting grape plants so I can start making my own wine in a couple of years. Grape plants, when you put them in the ground, and I'm talking cuttings from going out into the wild and taking a cutting, and I was using willow tea to soak it in as my root starter here, and then putting it in the ground, and I planted along the fence posts all around the pastures here, and then I also have some in the shade in my barn, which are grown in a different way because I don't know how any of this is going to take and work out. But I've got cuttings that were not supposed to be budding before next spring that are now sprouting new leaves. This has only been a week and a half since I put it in the ground. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I've talked to several persons and watched several videos on YouTube, and they say it's going to take 6 to 9 months before you start having new leaves and new shoots. I was just absolutely blown away. And as I plant, of course, it's a ceremony, it's a prayer. And of course, with each plant, I see the stick with the nodules, and I watch those nodules growing new roots, and then the nodules above ground growing new shoots, and then creating this giant vine with many grapes along the fence line. And every one of those hundreds of plants is a prayer putting it in the ground. To have in a week and a half new leaves on the grape plants is that's pretty miraculous. Pretty cool. So anyway, that's life in 5D, in 6D, and higher. And we're working with the energies that are of the spiritual worlds, the 7D, 8D, 9D, and above, as we're integrating our higher levels of our Merkana and our Merkaba, and we're reaching the highest levels of light that has ever been on this planet, other than those avatars that have walked the earth, like Jesus or Buddha or Sai Baba or many of those guys. And, it's pretty cool to be here and now, and it's interesting to see so many persons that are my peers that are going through the same process of integration right now as I am. Although we might be in different levels of light, and many might be way ahead of me and many might be behind me. It doesn't matter. We're all side by side. We're just going through our process. But it seems to be that we're having very similar experiences at this point, and it's really, really cool. I have taught ascension by the old ways of chakra activation and the expansion of the light body, this expansion of the chakra fields, which is nothing more than the expansion of the antenna that we are in the physical body that allows more of our higher self, higher levels of self to come in and embody the physical being and have the experience, and allow the ego personality, which this lifetime it's Bill Ballard, to more step aside but live in those higher frequencies and those higher selves coming in through the physical being, integrating and merging to have the experience of those higher selves being on earth while walking around in the body. And it's not, in some ways it's almost like a schizophrenic thing, because I get so many different messages. There's goes Ms. Brown right there. I hope you have a wonderful day, Ms. Brown. In some ways it's like a schizophrenia, because there's so many different levels to the higher self that you can hear and attune to, and there's different messages and different vibrations of that. And in some ways, some of those levels of higher self comes in and plays doing different things in ways that were just unimaginable not too long ago. And I think it's kind of cool, kind of funny, because those levels of higher self are really excited about integrating into the physical being. Schizophrenia is having other entities that are not yourself being inside the same body. This is kind of interesting because it's all myself, just very defined and accented levels of self. And that's really wild. Whether it's my Arcturian Starship Commander self, that, you know, I'd always got messages that were coming from that realm ever since I was a child, and had seen visions of my Galactic Federation self, which I have been merging with for quite some time, just like merging with my angelic self. My angelic self and I have been merging for over 20 years consciously, and I've been allowing that level of myself to literally take control within the physical being on many occasions. And it's, you know, now it's more times than not. And then Archangel Michael, who I always felt was my guide, only a few years back now did I realize that I'm a fractal of Michael. It's not just my guide. I'm That's where I came from. And that's the same thing with Lord Metatron, not just Archangel Metatron. I've got, you know, parts of Archangel Metatron within me. I'm about 90% Archangel Michael, but I've got 10% that's flavors of all the other archangels that are all part of who I am to make up this that I am as Bill Ballard in this experience. We each have that. But the integration with Metatron in Prime Creator now has been really a most amazing experience, and the levels of light that is encoded or coming in encoded with its density, with it's almost like modeling clay, light that's modeling clay. It's almost like I can shape my thought, my vision, my speech, the sound into that light and almost mold something into a shape now. And that's really, really incredible what's happening. We're still not there yet, but it's unfolding very, very fast. And with the fall equinox coming up, being the end of that 9-month birthing process since December 21st, 2012, it seems like right now we're all in that birth canal and we're getting ready to pop out that other side. I've heard so many persons say they feel like they're being squeezed through the birthing process, and it seems like we're all of those that are holding the higher levels of light are going through the same experiences. I don't have too much contact with 3D persons anymore, the 3D world. I'm just not there, and I don't really know what they're going through, but it seems the messages that that I am hearing from others that do still play in that game is very similar. It seems like so many of us are going through this death rebirth process, just like Steve, just like Miss Brown across the street, just in these past days. It's happening on a physical level with a lot of persons, and it's happening on a higher spiritual level of consciousness with others of us, and it all depends on where our focus has been and what our beliefs and our intent has been. So anyway, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in these next coming days as we come up to the fall equinox and go from there in the last quarter of this first year of New Earth. That's going to be very interesting to see, and it's my intent to make it as smooth as possible and to transmute as much of the negativities and the clarities as I possibly can from the realms that I'm playing within while I get through my personal process. So anyway, it's a very, very wonderful thing, wonderful experience. It's also interesting to see that we're not getting any solar flares coming through right now, that the sunspots are really, they're just dead. They're not there. And what's going to happen on the sun as it finally flips its field? Will it remain quadrupolar? Will it go back to bipolar? Will it go to octopolar sun? Some people have said it might have many more poles on the sun as we go through this process. And I haven't got a clue what's going on. I know the Earth's magnetic field is getting weaker and weaker, and that's what's allowing us to receive these cosmic energies, which is allowing the ascension process to unfold. It's all part of it, and it's all being orchestrated on a much, much higher level than people can really comprehend right now, especially those in the scientific community, because what we're actually seeing that's unfolding, that is recorded data, that is being captured by video, should not be occurring. We should be having solar flares and filaments releasing at Earth more often. They're releasing as it spins away from Earth, but not as it comes to Earth. And so that says a lot. It shows you there's some divine intelligence going down here, and it's coming from much, much higher levels than many of the scientific community will admit to right now. And again, I tell you to watch the Milky Way galaxy and watch what it's doing in relation to the North Star or the Pleiades. We're changing very, very rapidly. That's pretty cool. So anyway, I told you my videos as of July, we're going to start to get into topics and get pretty wild and straying from the old personal discussions and teachings of ascended mastery and the process of enlightening yourselves. And we were going to take it into a different level, much more expanded consciousness. And so anyway, that's certainly come true. And so anyway, guys, I got plants to take care of and some garden weeding to do, and got to get more horse poo-poo and do my life on the farm. Bye for now. Love you all. Stay in your hearts, people. Blast the light.